Hello, Kathy Waite here, and what you're looking at now is my YouTube channel, which this video is going to be on. My business is called Your Net Worth Manager, and I'm a fee-only financial planner. What that means is that I don't sell products. I work only for my clients. I don't represent a big company, so I will tell you the truth. And you all need to know the truth, because otherwise, how do you make the most of what you currently have? So I've been doing some videos about the jargon in financial services, and I'm doing 4 about indexing versus active. Why is it better for you? Some of the proof and how you actually would do it. And this is video number 2. It's the academic proof of what I'm saying. I always say don't trust the sales department of an investment company. Trust evidence and trust academics. So just as a recap, active investing is basically stock picking, whether you do that by individual stocks or whether you do it by buying a mutual fund, you're stock picking. And passive or indexing is where you buy the whole index. So for Canada, you might buy the TSX. For America, you might buy the S&P 500. If you wanted bonds, you might buy the whole bond index. Instead of picking certain funds, instead of picking certain stocks, you buy the whole market. So active investing is very popular with people who sell things, and it all relies on being able to time the market and be able to pick the winners. But what evidence shows us that it rarely works, and when it does work, it doesn't work consistently in the long run. So as my perspective as a financial planner, a money coach, a net worth manager, what I need is consistency. How can we have a plan if we can't fill that plan consistently? So is it really true that active doesn't beat the market consistently? And so you don't have to believe me. We can look at something called SPIVA. SPIVA stands for Standard & Poor Index versus Active, and it's a scorecard. It's independent research that comes out every 6 months, and basically what it shows is how many active managers actually beat the market, how many beat the index or the benchmark that they compare themselves to. So Standard & Poor, people tend to know the name, but it's a research company. They are independent. Their product is research. They don't sell things, so there's no reason for them to lie about this. And for 15 years, they have published data by surveying the 10,000 actively managed funds globally. And they tell us that fees have an important impact on fund performance. And active foreign funds actually underperform their benchmarks more severely. And big funds generally do better than small funds. So there is a paper copy of this, and I will show you that in a moment in case you prefer paper. But with this, what they tell us is that over 1 year, if in America, 84.62% of funds underperformed the S&P 500. Over a 5-year period, 91.9% of funds underperformed the S&P 500. So that means that 8.09 outperformed. So less than 10% of these active managers managed to do any better than if you or I had just bought the top 500 companies in America, perhaps rebalanced it annually. So you have to ask yourself, why am I paying like 2.8, 3.2% for some of these things when I could go and buy an index mutual fund or an ETF for 1/10 of that price? So in Canada, most of us invest in the US or in Canada. So let's go and have a look at Canada. And what we see there is over a year, 73.58, and over 5 years, 71.23. So one way of thinking of this is, if you had a car that only started 1 in 4 times, 28% of the time, I think you would be looking for a new car. So you just have to ask yourself, really, why do we keep doing this? And I guess one of the big reasons is they don't tell us. They don't give us information that actually allows us to compare our investments to the market. They give us statements that say it made a certain percentage, but what does that mean? Was 10% good and everything else did 30? Was -5 bad, or was -5 good? So when you actually compare things to an index or to a benchmark, it's much easier to see how things are doing. And that's why this information gets buried by the fund company. They don't want you to know, because you might leave. You might go and do something different. So this is the paper report that I was talking about. You can download it from their website, and it is written from a Canadian perspective. If there's something interesting, they might comment about, say, the seesawing market, and that's why it's been difficult for them. What it also does is points out kind of things that we might want to know. And if you look here, it does say, it should be noted that not a single manager who was investing in US equity was able to deliver higher returns than the benchmark over the 5-year horizon. So you remember when we looked at the US page, about 9% had in the US. If you have a Canadian fund that's investing in the US, that's actually telling us that not a single one of those Canadian managed funds that invests in the US has actually done better than the S&P 500. So if you want to have a look down, there's things about survivorship bias correction and apples to apples comparison and all the other kind of information that you might want. So the reason that we get this underperformance is partly the fees that mutual fund managers have to charge to run the fund and pay commissions to salespeople, but also because it is incredibly hard to guess what's going to happen. It's commonly known as the zero-sum game, and you might want to go and play with this video on Vimeo. It explains it. But academically, Professor Ken French and Eugene Farmer, who are Nobel Prize winners, have been writing since the 1970s about the fact that the market is the market, and for one person to win, one has to lose. And so now especially we have such fast trading. It's very difficult for one person to have unique information that puts them ahead. Companies try for office space are close to the exchange. They improve cabling. Things move in milliseconds. We see algorithms. We see flash crashes. So it's really become impossible to guess the market or to know anything unique. And so it's far more realistic for a family to aim to get their fair share of market performance and not to beat the market. If you own a diversified portfolio of stocks and you hold them for the long time, that is the way to win. We want to avoid fads and fashions. You will know David Chilton. Some of you will know him from Wealthy Barber, and others for his appearances on Dragon's Den. But back in 1989, 27 years ago, he wrote a book, and he really believed that you could fund pick. You could read the prospectuses and you could choose who was going to do well. So fast forward now, and he says that he just was completely disappointed by this and realized that you just can't study enough. It's a waste of time and you're better to buy an index. And this has been my conclusion over the same amount of time in the industry. We are sold an illusion. It's a sales pitch. It's the promise of success by a succession of fund managers, but they can't consistently do it. And it's very hard for clients to challenge that assumption because, as I said, they don't tell you, they don't give you the information to compare your performance to the benchmark. Warren Buffett says the best thing that an ordinary family can do is just go and buy an index fund. If you look at my Facebook page, you'll see his pictures and memes saying that. John Bogle, who is now 90, and he founded the Vanguard Group in 74 and was named by Fortune as one of the 4 investment giants of the 20th century. He manages $2 trillion, bearing in mind the largest fund in Canada is $13 billion. So he knows his stuff. His mantra is to stop looking for the needle in the haystack and buy the haystack. When I first started talking about doing this for regular families in 2011, to be quite honest, some colleagues were really rude. They just completely scorned the fact that someone would want to do something different. And I found out since that he was called un-American, and he was derided, and they called it Bogle's folly. So that makes me feel much better. So I would strongly suggest you look at your statements. The chances are they don't show your performance against an index. So how do you know if you've actually done well or not? I'm offering a free portfolio review that's worth $750. If you can contact me through my email address, through my website. And really, what have you got to lose? I will help you find out the truth about what you have. If what you have has done well, then that's really good news. if it hasn't done well, isn't it better to know now than to keep doing the same thing and it take longer for you to retire, for it to take longer for you to achieve your goals? I always say that no one cares more about your money than you do. So really, put the effort into being informed and finding out where you stand. So thanks for listening today. And remember, I always say plans before products, and feel free to get in touch and ask any questions that you want to.